So I got 10:30. Like I said, if you guys are cool to get started, we'll keep it on time. I'm going to ask partway through for some live polling. So get the audience giving me some info, so that'll be cool. So if you're able, pollev.com and then Brent Mauti 998. I don't know why, that's what it is. It'll come up again on the subsequent slides when the poll comes. But what I want to talk about today is going to be focused really just on design automation and what that actually means from IBI Group's perspective and how we implemented that at various levels, from macro to micro. So just myself, I'm Brent Mauti, Global Director at IBI Group. I'm on the CanBIM board. I've been an architect, for a very long time, it seems. My daughter points out my profession has made my hair gray on my beard, so she remembers when it wasn't gray, so that's what it does to us. I've been playing with the BIM process. It feels like my entire career. I was chastised at university because I wanted to do things digitally when they still wanted us to do pencil on paper. So that's kind of the vintage of where I'm from. And I've had my greatest successes not through architecture, but through interoperability of digital data. And I think the three projects that I enjoyed the most in my career were the London Olympics, where I was helping to orchestrate the movement of information from 46 external entities into the Olympic Delivery Authority. And that was from 06 to 08, right at the forefront of the BIM process implementation in the UK, and it was just phenomenal. From there, I went to Panama City, working on the Panama Canal expansion. So to get the big ships through the canal, they're building a whole new set of locks, and they're BIMing all of the locks and the concrete and the repairs and the crack repair and the management of the actual mechanical of the lock system itself. That was pretty cool. And then Masdar City in Abu Dhabi. And just a brand new clean slate. We're going to take that flat piece of desert and put a massive city into it. And the front end of that. So really fun stuff, all about digital data. So I start with this slide. My CEO actually made this slide. A lot of poking from me, but it's all good. And what he likes to talk about here, and as do I, is the vast increase in the change of technological implementation in the last 15 years or so. And prior to that, it was a setting I laugh at, the punch cards, the adding machines. I don't know how that's technological, but it was way back then. This very slow increase until the introduction of the internet and open source data that just created a mass explosion of potential. And from that, we have all these things that we're seeing today. And, sky's the limit. We don't know what's going to happen. And when we talk about the application and infusion of technology into our profession, I don't know what that means a year from now, let alone 10 years from now, but we have to stay on the forefront. The list here is something that IBI has their lens over because we know it's going to impact us in some way. So not to dwell on all of these, but very quickly, the power of the cloud. You can access anything from anywhere through 5G speeds. That whole, download an HD movie in minutes instead of tens of minutes, or seconds instead of tens of minutes. So that differentiation. Software as a service or platform as a service, meaning I don't need mass infrastructures to implement things anymore. I just need to feed into a digital or technological ecosystem to have access. Big data, there's data everywhere. You own data, I own data, architectural, engineering, construction, operation, you name it, it's everywhere. So now let's bring it all together. And then I want to see data a certain way, you want to see it a different way. That's big data, purpose fit through a lens, through somebody's window. Then there's all this fear. In the last 20 years, can I give you my Revit model? My answer is, well, why not? And you hear liability, negligence, all these legal things, and you ask, well, what do you mean? The answer is, well, I don't know. It's just you got to be liable for something, so there's an excuse. And you laugh at that. But enter blockchain, the actual digital ledger that cannot be corrupted on how the state of data was at one point in time when transmitted to others. And that block continues. So I give you my data represented in Revit, in IFC, in whatever, and it's documented. And it's captured in time, in virtual time. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, so AI. Once I have data, this massive data, let's learn from it, let's automate from it, let's do something with it. AR, VR, take that data, experience in it through the power of 5G serviced by the cloud. I can now immerse myself into the experience of that information in some form or another. Harness quantum computing in the back end of all this data to actually achieve something in ways that we could never possibly dream of today. And we're exploring heavily RPA, robotic process automations, taking tasks, mundane tasks, whatever it is, anything you have to do more than once, automate it. Anything you have to pass on to somebody else more than one time, automate it. And the message that I give to my team is you can automate absolutely anything, just think about it. Think about what you'd want to automate, and we can automate it. IBI plays in all these realms, and what we talk is we're at kind of this pulsing intersection between the physical and the virtual. And our president is actually giving the keynote in the afternoon, and he'll expand much more on this. So I'm not going to steal his thunder, but this is where I play. I'm the guy down here, so it's all good. BIM, the BIM process. BIM is not Revit, BIM is not architects, BIM is not buildings. Forget about all those myths that when I teach, this is all I express in that first class. And I say, if you leave the class thinking BIM is Revit, you have to only fail, all right? So BIM is this process that empowers all these things around. I'm going to give examples of a bunch of these where IBI has basically taken the information, whether it's geometric or otherwise, and done something with it. So IBI, what we bring to the table is we envision joining the dots between the four macro phases of any one project and trying to bring solutions, whether it's during our design process, the front-end planning, heavily with user engagement. And for me, a lot of the examples I'll show today at the end, the visualization example. It's not about creating renderings. It's not about creating a VR. It's how do you immerse someone into the experience of the information that I'm trying to convey, whether it's traditional design or otherwise. And then I'll show our asset management and smart city platform. So that's kind of what I'll cover. This is my BIM slide that I've used from day one, the bringing together of the virtual. And I always say to people, this is nothing. If this isn't common knowledge, we're failing as an industry. And it's amazing when you go to several, from large firms right down to the smallest of firms. My dad's an architect. I pick on him all the time. He hates this stuff. He says, Brent, you're talking rubbish. I'm like, I don't think I am. Come on, Father. Get away. He's 72, so I have to cut him a little slack. Model, materials, clashes, drawings, all the output of the model. And that is what it is. There's no disputing this anymore. We disputed this 15 years ago and probably shouldn't have been, but it was being disputed. BIM is all of this. Oh, I lost my little title up there. That sucks. But these are projects I've worked on. And this was a fascinating project. This jumble spaghetti of mechanical, electrical, and telecommunications. They wanted everything represented. This one at the bottom right is Viva Next. It's a bus rapid transit. And we modeled existing utilities, new utilities. We did clash detections on the 10-year growth of tree bulbs against the proposed utilities. And we said we might have an issue there. If that tree grows as expected, it will interfere with the pipe. Let's do something about that. And it's like, oh, temporal clash. And that's kind of cool. So BIM is civil. BIM is pipe. BIM is these conduits. Crazy. Also, what also gets missed in the top right here, this is BIM too. Now, this is nothing like anything Revit has to offer, but this is your process instrumentation diagram, your collection of assets that get tied towards a mechanical model and has validation and quality check back and forth. That was my life for the first 5 years of my working experience. Brent, go BIM a water treatment plant. I said, oh, how hard could that be? It was hard. I was so naive coming out of school, but it was fun. But this is the norm. That's what we do. And that user, what I'm going to focus on here is things that we've built for each one of these users. So bridging into the world of automation. Anything can be automated with a purpose, with a reason. And I'm going to start, if you picture a pyramid from macro down to micro, I'm going to start with the micro first. And why I show the presentation this way is it's all this phenomenal stuff like I just described. But when I get into the offices and I hear, well, Revit doesn't print. I'm like, oh, okay, well, forget about 5G, blockchain, and all that good stuff because we can't print a drawing. So you got to get down to the fundamentals. And then I just get deflated, and it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. But we address those. So before I get to that, I'm going to try this first poll. So if everybody can participate, that would be awesome. So I'm going to activate it. Again, this is the first time I've done this live. What's your first instinctual thought when you hear the words design automation? It's the first thing that comes to mind. Because I always say the first thing is probably the best thing. So it's at pollev.com, Brent.Mauti998. Yes, it works. Woohoo! You don't know how much a relief it is to see at least one word pop up there. So just give a minute or so. If everybody can throw something up, that would be awesome. I always tell my daughter, don't overthink. And I tell some of my staff as well, like instinct sometimes it's the best thing. Right away, rapid thought, design automation, what comes to mind? And sometimes I debate whether I should show them live because then it influences the instinct. But I'll pretend it's not influencing the instinct. That's cool. All right, 5. Is that all I'm going to get? All right. Yes. Repeatability. Speed. Good stuff. I'll leave it open. When I go to the next one, if you want to just leave it open on your browser, it'll come back to the same thing when the next one opens up. But that's good stuff. I'll try to capture all of that and convey it back. Okay, so my CEO said, if we're going to automate stuff, do things of value. And I said, well, how do you define something of value? So his first thing was, do something that affects your everyday user first. And I said we could do that. So the first thing we looked at was loaders. Now, doesn't sound fun, doesn't sound BIM-y, doesn't sound anything like what I started with, but I said, if we're struggling with, I need to print from Revit, if we're struggling with, I can't open software, we're going to struggle and not achieve anything. So the first one I'm going to show here is our Revit loader. And this comes from, I can't see the template, I don't know what version, nothing's installed right, what libraries do I need to see, I can't connect to Revit server, my accelerator is wrong, blah, blah, blah. But it's there. And if it's not addressed, it breaks. So here, what we have is the ability to select discipline, select from some deployed shared parameter files, select which templates I want available, which library files, and whether or not I'm connecting to the Revit server. So that's, if I have a Revit server, my office is listed. If I don't, I need to reset my accelerator, I can do that. All of this built in because what happens is, you don't need a loader. Everybody open up your Revit, go to File, Options, input all these things I tell you to input, and everybody do it consistently across the globe. Across my office, across all the offices. And you can imagine how well that happens. Did you do it? No, I did it. Did you? So, okay. So we built this little tool. And it's great because now, not only can I track usage of it, so anytime you pop it open, I get triggered. And I say, all right, I have some input in these offices. I can also track if you launch Revit and don't use it. I have a dashboard for that as well. So all of a sudden now I have all of this data showing how I'm launching Revit. And you might think, Brent, that's pretty hardcore for launching Revit. But it's the only way we could find to actually instill this common foundation to achieve the outputs. Now, you get your families, you get everything set up correctly, you get your templates, your settings, it's all there. You just have to click that button and it happens. So we get about, 12,000 usages a month or so on this, which is great, and I'm able to track it. So then we said, okay, I know everything's not Revit. So we said, let's do the same thing with AutoCAD. So we made a loader, and now this is the same thing. Where's my CTB file? Nothing's printing right. What's my template, etc. So a little simpler than the Revit world, because AutoCAD is a little simpler than the Revit world. But the simplest was, I want a profile that you all get. And when I launch this thing, I want to locally sync all the fonts, all the pattern files, and everything to the local drive for speed. We built registry hacks so that if you select offices and there's a custom CTB file for your client and not for my client, it gets fed into the launch. And it's all done automatically. Now here I say, well, the world of BIM, well, you've got Civil 3D, you've got Plant 3D. So the ability to launch Autodesk in AutoCAD products in a consistent manner helps us with the non-building based BIM tools that we have deployed. And here, options. So once we deployed this, it was, oh, great, now where's my toolbar? Where's my this? I can't work because my custom little button is, okay. So we fixed all that. So all your custom little buttons stay where they are. But we have the consistency on the things that matter, which is these things. Same thing with Civil 3D. We said, all right, we did base AutoCAD, extended to Civil 3D. You wouldn't believe the workspace, the ability to control, is it a Civil 3D workspace than a non-Civil 3D workspace? To have that profile. And the main thing here with this profile is your data shortcut. And the Civil 3D data shortcut connectivity to pipes and valves and alignments and surfaces, and to have that common connectivity across multiple files is critical. And we've had disastrous projects where nothing lined up. I query a bunch of DWGs for a pipe network, and I have hundreds of pipe networks for the same pipe. And I scratch my head saying, well, why? Well, they all connected to the wrong data shortcut. And I said, okay, we'll fix that. And then lastly, we said, well, we got the world of Bentley. So I know here in Western Canada, I don't think there's many jurisdictions that require Bentley, but in Eastern Canada, especially in the transportation world, all of these deployed standards, city standards, U.S. Departments of Transportation, California, Ohio, they're all there. You want to bid and win their work, congratulations, you better be launching and using their standard, or they will reject your deliverables and not pay. And why go through that hassle? So what do you have to do? You might have to learn inroads, open roads, microstation. But learning the software is not enough. You need configured information. They have all their data parameters set. They have all their content set. And away you go. So when we win these projects, imagine the chaos. I need help from somebody in Office X and I'm sitting in Office Y. Nobody knew what to do or how to do it. Now it quite literally is you open it, you click a button, you launch, and away you go. No matter where you are globally, internal to IBI, or even this could be facilitated for somebody working collaboratively externally. So powerful stuff, all trackable. So then I said, well, now there's general utilities. And these ones, simple. What software do you have installed? Do you have the most current version? So it's just a little check to your computer, lets you select a bunch of items you want to have installed, automatically generates a message to the inbox where you ask for it, and automatically lists the software that you require. Sorry for the resolution there. But this one here, the joy of this was, it's so simple. What version of Revit do you have installed? Oh, I got to launch Revit, go to help. What am I supposed to have? I don't really know. And all of this dialogue. And it's a quite simple thing. So we said, let's just harness the registry. So we hacked the registry to the code, and we looked at what the version is, and we have a list of what should be there. Done. Compare, make it all red in your face. Oh my God, these are bad. But it's just quick. Something that took way too long can happen. And we do this for everything. Everything design software and even non-design software. Right version of Office, right version of our financial system, our ERP. Check, and away you go. We also have a drive cleaner that's built into all of our loaders. So this one here was pretty simple. I'm running out of hard drive space. So great, delete stuff. Well, what can I delete? Well, go delete these local cache things. I don't know where they are. And if you're using BIM 360, which was formerly C4R, it's in a nice encrypted location. Have fun with that, right? So here, check the box and purge it. Simple as that. And ask, are we allowed to do it? The answer is rock on. It's here, you can do it. And this one here, this one scares so many people. Go to Windows Temp and press delete. I don't want to do that. Like, no, do it. There's 5 gigs of stuff in there. Get rid of it. Free up your hard drive. So this one here actually goes to the Windows temp, the user temp, and there's a third one too. I can't remember. And it just purges all this stuff away. Simple, quick, to the point. And we suffer from map drives. I don't know if you all have map drives still. I hate map drives. So our issue with map drives, J is our projects. And we have a J in every single office location. So if we're not using a cloud system, which my view is everything should be cloud, period. But guess what? That costs a little bit of money, like BIM 360 for every single project. We have just a little study. I get yelled at. I can't afford $1,000 a user, blah. All right, fine. So we have these J drives. And then somebody in Edmonton says, can the person in Toronto help me? Sure. I don't know how to map a J drive. And then just dead silence. Collaboration dies. So here, a quick little tool, select what you want, map it, connect it, done. Simple, simple, simple. And when you look at this, you say, well, Brent, I could do that. You go and unmap and remap. Yes, the problem was, when I want to remap to any one of these, where do I go and find the paths to all these locations? IT, somewhere it's listed. Maybe if it's all documented, well, great. But this does all that for you. Rationalizes all the IP addresses and does the connection. So, quick general utilities. So if you go back to your poll, if you could automate anything, what would it be? So let me just go to the second. Oh, I think I ought to deactivate the first. Sorry, hold on. I'll turn that one off. And let me go to poll number 2. If you could automate anything, what would it be? Activate. Because this has been the fun part in doing this. I'm asked, Brent, just bring efficiencies. I don't know what people think are efficiencies. So oftentimes it has to be reactive. What's been the problem, right? What irks you? What have you done so many times that you wish you never had to do it again? So we would have meetings with our business leaders and ask about the process. And you can imagine the project delivery process from the perspective of so many different people scattered across the globe, right? The answers would vary, but printer, setup, email, field responses, 360. Awesome. Anybody else? I like that. Automate Revit. Hell yeah. That's actually an awesome segue into where I'm about to go. So I'll leave this open. Very cool. See, that's good stuff. I'm not sure why it's making Revit so big. It's like a bunch of you have said Revit, or it knows I have this like angst with Revit. I'm not sure, but that's cool. All right, let me go back. I'll keep it open. So, automate Revit. So the Revit Modular. So the struggle we've had with this, do I buy something that brings automation tools, right? So we do. We have things like CTC tools, Kiwi, you name it. They put things in front of me all the time. Brent, can we buy this? And I say, yeah, whatever, yeah, probably. It all costs money. Some are site licensed per office. Some are per user. If you want an enterprise license for some things, your eyes pop out and say, how could it cost that much, right? Then you're stuck with what it does. You're stuck with how it automates. So when we went through some of these, and I'm just going to show a couple quickly here. So the first one, this level creator. We said we just want something simple. And lucky, I benefit. Someone on my team is a guru for building stuff in Revit. So built a widget. Select how many levels, and we do everything from high-rise buildings to low-rise, and build the view. Done. And when I show this to the CEO, I just say, imagine how many times or how many clicks I would have to do just to get that. Simple clicks. And when we talk about automation, we look at what are these click-saving opportunities that we could potentially have. Sheet creator. Same concept, only here the challenge we have is oftentimes we have a project manager with a lovely spreadsheet of these are all my sheets. Okay, great, now I've got to go into Revit and repeat, import, whatever. So we said, well, let's do it. Let's build something that imports this list of sheets. We have discipline designators on the sheets. So somebody's gone to all this trouble to decide what they want, and we're just going to jam this stuff directly into Revit. Now, there's other tools, potentially, that could do that. But this one here, the reason why we wanted to build this, because it gives us the control. We can now augment this anytime. It auto-installs when people plug into the computers in the morning. So if we change anything about this any of these applications in this ribbon, you just get it automatically globally. So quick, simple, quick adjustments, and they appear. The phase one. Oh, did I lose? There we go. Phase creator. This one here, first of all, what's a standard phase on a project? So new, existing, demo, not in contract, or what I grew up with. Hopefully resonates with many, but who knows what phases you might have. So typical phases, custom phases, decide which ones you want, and it'll just go off and create all the views for us. Simple clicks. And these are all live. not sped up, not slowed down or anything, and everything is there created. And again, it's about click savings. That's the important thing here. So I didn't dwell on all of them here because there's a whole bunch in this work set. We have a CAD finder where's that corrupt CAD link into the Revit model. Shows me the links, shows me where they are, lets me delete them from a simple window, clean up my Revit, things like that. From the design professional's perspective, we then said, well, now we just need workflows. So some of these workflows will be how to do something that's just part of the Revit workflow or something that we've built on top of other tools. So area calcs. We've had so much, I don't know I got to measure my plans. Like, measure your plans. Why don't you just use Revit the way it's meant to be used? And this is a struggle, and this goes right to every single level of the project. So this is really just showing that not only you have spaces, from those spaces you can do things just by simple generation of standardized schedules. This is nothing special other than stepping back and saying you need proper workflow in order to generate this stuff. It's very simple, but the problem is, and this is with the BIM process as a whole, we all sit in the room and you say, yeah, Brent, that's not genius. And I'll say, you're right. But for whatever reason, the simplicity, like as an architect, for me to do that is phenomenal. Why am I not doing that? When I have the joyous discussions with architects about BIM, and I ask, do you want to draw a door 1 time or 4 times? And I just wait for the answer. Because if the answer is 4, you've got a real problem with who you're talking to. So 1 is obviously better. That's the efficiency. So why would I not want to automatically generate my schedules? I don't know what the answer is, but it's workflow. I don't know how to create a schedule. Okay, we'll create you the schedule, but understand that this is the automated portion. This is BIM Automation 101. It's there. Now, BIM Automation, a little higher than that, we often have to work with room data sheets. So in the UK, they're called C sheets, and there were the drivers of why we needed this specifically. We need a C sheet for every room. So we built a parameter saying I need a room data sheet. I apologize, it doesn't look totally focused, but Dynamo, generate my plan, my 4 elevations. So it generates them. Generate my 3D. Again, this is in real time. I talk faster than the computer, apparently. Generate my view, so all 6 rooms were said they need it. Generate my schedule, so every single asset that resides in the room. Of course, there's none right now, so you'll see that in a sec. And then generate the C sheet, or the room data sheet. Takes all of the stuff, places it in the generated sheet. And this was out of necessity. We were losing so much time and effort on just building this. And you can see that's such a beautiful room. As an architect, let me tell you, but that's the concept. Okay? Anything in there, that's what you'll get. Anything that's placed in the room will show up. The beauty of that is then I can push that into an asset database, connect it to an asset management system. It's all there. And that's the important piece. And it's quick. The amount of clicks to do this is ridiculous. And then we were apparently being outbid on projects, and all the business reasons why, oh my God, Brent, BIM is killing us because I can't do this automatically. Then I'd say, well, without BIM, how do you do it? Well, even worse, manually. Okay, so BIM isn't actually killing you, it's the need for this. So it's working through all of that as well. The world is coming to an end when something's needed, but then once it's created, well, now why doesn't it do this? But it's all good. It's fun. It's the joy of this. So that's there. And again, deployed. All these things I show, the deployment is a critical thing as well. When I came to IBI, it was manually copying office to office. We actually have one folder, if you will, that replicates across the entire firm. So if you go to, in our world, I:/Tech Standard, it's common everywhere. So we just replicate it across all the local offices. So stuff like this, it is in every single location when we work. Now, the boring side. This is terrible stuff, okay? This is major municipal projects that need a delivery in AutoCAD or MicroStation. This one here, for example, is our Tel Aviv Red Line. And it was nuts because they couldn't care less about the model. They wanted their DWG. So we said, how do we check it? Because they weren't paying us. So we had a bunch of layers they checked in a model space, in the paper space, and then title block properties they checked. And if you notice here, one of the checking mechanisms were to make sure that the stuff in Hebrew was entered correctly. Can you imagine? You can't even spell properly in English across a project. Had to be all right in English and in Hebrew. So we built this little tool, and I believe it's launched a lot more automated than what you're seeing here. But when they sent me this video, I said, oh, where's the button, man? I just want the button. So now there is the button that does that little bit, pulls up this checker. And basically we say, okay, where's our output? Where's our DWGs? They have a discipline code they had to enter. What they called D sheets is the model space template. What they called P sheets is the paper space template. And where's the title block properties checker? Give me an output, and then open every single file in that deliverable and check. That's all it's doing. And this is live, I think, yeah, this is live 100 normal speed, not sped up or anything. So it's just opening every file, doing the check, looking at layers, looking at title block properties, looking at text styles and dimension styles, and then giving me a report. And what I love about the report, green is good, red is bad. So green is good, red is bad, and you fix it. And you fix it here before the client runs something of their own and then does the, yeah, we're not paying you. You're giving us digital rubbish. Now, again, it's 2D, it sucks, because in my world, I'd rather deliver that model. We're not there yet in many jurisdictions at all. So this validates, though, because this goes right back to what I'm doing inside my model and how I'm controlling that output, and it gives me a mechanism to validate that what's coming out of my model is going to meet the deliverable requirements of that project. And since then, we've augmented this from the specifics of the Tel Aviv project to be something that's globally applicable within IBI Group. Our structural engineers. So anybody that have the fun dynamic between architects and structural trying to get a concept out, it's great. So we challenged them and said, just give us something quick. And they said, well, you know what? Let's use Dynamo to do something quick. So once they have a bounding box, they built this script that allows them to input parameters. So live load max, dead load max, number of bays, number of whether they're going to do cross bracing, no cross bracing, etc. And with that, they're able to get number of levels, kind of important too. They're able to get quick models generated with structural components pulled in from Revit using building code information from part 4 here of the Ontario Building Code. And very quickly they have something that, and that was all live speed as well, something that I could actually use if I were the architect for this project. And works for different types of arrangements as well. And when they use this, again, it's the value of speed, how to jumpstart conceptual design. So I'm going to show in a second your Rhino grasshopper from an architectural perspective, jumpstarting concept. But here from a structural, and I'd love to extend this into MEP, to be able to get to things like this really quickly. And these are valid Revit models, correct components, correct families, it's all there. I could actually do preliminary structural analysis with this information based on the content that's been put in. So very powerful stuff from 0 to 30% design. And lastly, on this section, BIM Bot. IBI has been using this term for a while now. And I try to preface it. It's like, no, we didn't build a robot. It doesn't automate BIM, but we focused here specifically on the process of clash detection. And this was done for, projects like our LRT projects where we have a bunch of collaborators and decision makers. And that's the challenge where those decision makers are, because they're not all sitting within the Revit model. They're not all sitting within IBI. They're scattered everywhere. So there's your process, right? We've got Navisworks clashes connected into BIM track. It's all a good world. So then I say, now I need a decision to be made. So my favorite one, I have a beam going through a column, fix it, right? What, do you do that to the beam? Do you raise this, or do you do that to the duct? What did I say? I have a beam going through a duct. So do you make the duct go like this? Do you just raise the building? Who makes the decision? Who signs off on it? And why can't it just get done? So I'm going to let this video play for a moment. And what this is showing, part of the whole bot process, I can make it louder. That's the loudest it goes. Are our marketing team got on board and said, hey, let's make this thing, this digital persona that's part of our interactive nature. So here with the BIM Bot, we said, this is what it's actually doing. Connecting to this digital presence, analyze the communication, connect you to the clashes. So the clashes are there. They're in Navisworks. They're accessible via BIM track. But now I'm going outside saying, hey, solve this stuff. You don't have access to any of the cloud services, but I need your solution on this. Brings you through a communication channel to see what that clash is. Reports back on all the clashes and all the dialogue that's been done around the clash. And then reports on the resolution. And the idea of what it brought was to connect those outside of the regular design process, but pertinent to the resolution of the clash, to that information themselves. Without them needing Navisworks, without them needing BIM track, without them needing the model itself. And it helped us to spearhead resolution on something like our Eglinton Crosstown project, $12.8 billion project. Resolution of about 5,000 true clashes, so 19 kilometers of rail, a whole bunch of stations and stops in the mix. So true clashes. You could imagine the other types of false clashes we got. But the resolution process in months instead of what was estimated to take possibly an entire year. So that quickness, and it was to get the decision and then report on the decisions and validate the process to the stakeholders that we were actually doing that. Front-end design. This is a heavy piece at IBI Group, and I could show an hour worth of just these examples. I love this stuff. I can't do this stuff, but this is your grasshopper rhino. This example here is looking at how the validity of placing EV and solar panels both on the roof and on parts of the facade would be effective at the any point in the year. And also to future-proof it, what's the effect of different buildings and how does that affect and shade the panels on the building. We did this to show that, hey, you know what? If, they were debating how much should we do them up every single facade, if they're on the inside. So there's all the variations that they analyzed, and they did this all at the front end of the project. Very simple, but all algorithmic, all there. The other example here, this was an interior layout. One of our office buildings, again, you set a parameter. Everything's related to everything else. So all those sliders let you control your geometry. Once I have them all in place, you can run the optimizer that's built into Rhino that lets you find the optimum. So how many seats can I put in there? That's optimized. What's the most amount of seats I can do? So run it, goes through every single possible situation of this. And when it weans out what we don't need, it yields the result. We do this in front of the clients, with them, to show them that, we don't just guess a solution. We actually work through solutions. We might show specific options and then get them to choose. This one here was looking at distance to, I believe it was the printers. They were saying as another example to show how you can optimize what's the least amount of walking space up from any one location to a collection of, 6 printers I think they have there, 6 or 7. And it tries everything. And this is live, real time. How do you do this without this form of automation? Once it finishes, I have the examples, go to the client, have an awesome chat with whichever ones I want to capture and save. We've done this for density calculations, and David Tom will show a bit of that at 1 o'clock, validating density of a design of a whole complex around a transportation station. We've done it for just simple facade layouts. We've done it for high-rise buildings to not cast new shadows. So how do we build within the shadow line of an existing building? Well, first you find all the algorithms to determine what the existing shadow is throughout the year, and then it leaves me some real funky, insane thing, and then you build within the funky, insane to have something that actually works. Okay. What do you believe to be a barrier to technological advancement and implementation? So let me just turn this one off, and I'll just activate it here. So a barrier to technological advancement and implementation. Because when I talk about these things, sometimes I'll say, "Oh, that's beautiful." That's what I'd say. I always say, and actually, just so you're all aware, I do teach at George Brown College and Algonquin College. And when I teach some of these things, they'll say, "So Brent, why do you teach something and tell us this awesome thing and then tell us, oh, but it doesn't really happen like that?" And these barriers exist. And I tell them, it's funny, for people, I would say cultural and people is huge, you know? And I don't want to say the old dog, new tricks, but, you know, I'll pick on my dear father, 72 years old, couldn't care less about, quote, all your BIM stuff, Brent. And it's like, it's not my BIM stuff, first of all, but that's what he thinks. You know, I think he uses a very old version of AutoCAD because, as he says, quote, it still works on my computer, so why do I have to pay Autodesk more money? Really? So it's just a very different world. And then he goes, "So when I retire, do you want my business?" Not really at all. But so I think I'm breaking his heart. But yeah, no, these are great answers. Mindset, so cultural mindset, people, management. Even so at IBI Group, so our CEO spoke at CanBIM 2 years ago in Toronto, our president speaking here today. I've got this top level buy-in, but even at IBI, then there's areas where it's like, okay, I go into an area, it's like, oh, okay, so you haven't heard what we're doing globally, and okay, so even inside where I think I've got things, quote, in order, sometimes I'm shocked. When I travel around the world and I'm on projects, I'm amazed sometimes where some people know what BIM is, don't know what it is, have tools, don't. The UK, when we talk about BIM execution planning, let me flip that. In North America, we jump in and do a BIM execution plan. Open up that document, start filling stuff out, and then we never look at it again. The UK I really like because the start of their process is they call it the EIR, so the Employer's Information Requirement, which is basically go talk to your owner. Go talk to your client and ask, what do you want? And if you can't do that, my opinion is, why don't you just stop the project? And then if you've done that, then they have the assessment forms. So before I jump into the BXP, or as they call it, the BEP, do you know what BIM is? And everybody on your team, do you all know what BIM is? Do you all have the resources? And do you all have what they call the IT capabilities? But that's a different term. But do you have the capabilities? Have you assessed your capability to do the project? Now go make your plan. And I think that's great. Right? So that helps at the project level. So when you think of management of our clients, management of all of the stakeholders, do they know what they're asking for? If you were at the Owners Summit yesterday, I thought it was amazing when I heard some of them say, we need to define the requirements up front. I wanted to say, yes, you definitely need to. We have to have that dialogue because it'll help a lot of this. Because imagine all these management people, everybody inside the firm saying, I don't want to do this. But I want to bid on this awesome project. And then you get that awesome project and it says, I want a BIM turnover. I want an OpenBIM output. I want the actual raw authoring models. And I want a list of assets. These are the 15 assets I want. And in those 15 assets, each of them need these 5 data parameters. So what are you going to do? Not bid on the project? Or are we going to embrace all this stuff? And I bet we're going to suddenly embrace all this stuff. As opposed to the client that says, do BIM. Okay. Doing it. Check, right? Come on. All right, so I'll deactivate that. Let me go. How am I doing on time? That's pretty good. The knowledge seeker. So, back to our chat bot here. So this bot, it was actually really fun. We said, okay, if we're going to do this digital stuff, we're going to build this persona around it. So this was the first video. The BIM Bot one was the second video. So I actually had people on my Viz team who build our renderings and animations. They got in with the marketing team, and we branded this bot with elements of IBI Group, both from like IBI Green to IBI Green, having the logo part of the face, and also it was really fun building this. And then we built little 3D printed bots, and we handed them out to everybody, so your little bot is sitting there looking at you. And then inside Teams, we infuse the bots. Using Microsoft Bot Framework, we put the bot in there, and you can now ask it for things like, I was going to say, that's not my video, like the digital transfer agreement. So the idea here is, take a little BIM legal moment here. I give you something digital, Great, what are you going to do with it, right? So I started with, you want my Revit model? I say, yeah, have at it, it's all yours. But just be aware, I only did my Revit model for A, B, C, D, E. That's the digital transfer agreement. So we tell our people, if you're going to give this digital stuff, can you just get the agreement and just do it? What do you get? Oh, where's the agreement? I used this thing 2 years ago on projects. Yeah, no, how about just use the standard? I can't find it, and you hear all this. So automate it. Do it through the chatbot. So literally, they can just ask the chatbot, can I have the digital transfer agreement? And through the Microsoft Teams, verbal interface to the chatbot, it'll yield it for me. So quick. I can also ask the chatbot, hey, you know that Revit loader thing you talked about, that guy Brent talked about? Tell me how it works. So here we're talking to the bot. There's a list of all the things. And see, I didn't show you all of them. Bunch of things we built. And it just goes into our internal virtual office, gives me a description of Revit Loader, how it works, etc., to my fingertips. Because there, it's my favorite. I told you I can track usage. So when I get the list of, I didn't use Revit Loader, I go and ask them, what's the deal? Didn't know how. That's my favorite response. All right, so I got to show you how to do it, right? And then some of the other responses, we'll skip those. But I didn't know how is valid if nobody told, I guess, you know. Now immersion, virtual reality. So we have all this data, and notice I call it data. So even here, this example, this isn't about being immersed into a model, which it is a model, but it's the information about what's there. And so we've got a team that I govern. They're focusing on how to virtualize an experience. So this was for our condo practice or private practices. And there it's about how do the developers have something that they want to actually put up so they can sell the condo. So when they first did this a while ago, just the sheer materiality, understanding of what everything is, having some connections, just a very powerful way that you're able to do this. So it's an impressive way. And through the 360s, you can actually bridge that to your phones very, very easily. They're all hosted on a site. So it's an open website to your phone. You're there and you're experiencing it. And if you have the phones that become the goggles, very, very quick VR. So kind of cool. But what this video will show, and you know what? I'm going to mute it so I can talk over, because that's not going to come up very well. Can you guys hear him? No, eh? All right. So you know what? I'm going to skip this video then, because that defeats the purpose. I just want to show this part here. So this school, this was, so this is the York School. It's Midtown Toronto. All right, there we go. So it was an infill project, and they wanted to use the VR as part of a fundraising event. And the fun part about this was we actually built the environment and let the students, all these children, experience what it was to be about in this event with their parents, and it generated about 80% or so of the donations required in order to achieve this. And we built what we call digital actors. So that basketball, so this is using Unity or Unreal, awesome engines. You go from Revit straight in, and I'll let that go. Well, this is just another project, but building that capability went beyond just put the goggles on to see a BIM. You're actually doing something. So we wanted the children to actually be in the space that they were going to interact with. And for me, that's the power of VR. Some of these other ones, this project, it was the digital to the real. So this was down at Samsung. They wanted tech embedded in, and what we initially showed versus what was actually there. They loved it. They said the full realism of it was, it was no lie. And this was my last design project. I loved it just last year. This one here, using VR as part of patient treatment. So this is a dementia care facility in Alberta. And the idea here was to put the patient into the VR and give them a test. So they can actually experience the outside space, walk around, because they have a bit of limited mobility as well. But look, and their mission is to light the candles. So as they're walking around, they've got to bend over, they've got to reach up, and it's testing their mobility, testing their cognitive skills to remember and recognize what they have done and what they still have to do, and allows them to move through the space. And I thought this was just a fascinating way to do something more with being immersed in an experience and actually bridge and connect it to the actual purpose of the facility itself. And this is actually one of the patients performing the task. This one here, this is a digital sales center, virtual sales center that we built. So a client for this all seniors care facility said, we like all your tech stuff, but I don't want to put these goggles on the inhabitants. They're not going to be comfortable in it. So instead, we actually built the full touchscreen experience. So what happens is this touchscreen would be sitting inside the sales office, and potential inhabitants of the all seniors care facility would come, interact, and again, it's directly tied to the BIM. It was fed from Revit into, and I always get them wrong whether it's Unity or Unreal. I think this was Unity as well. But fed into Unity, and then the ability to interact and understand if I'm buying one of those units, where is it? What's it about? What's the layout? What's the feel of the space going to be? So without full immersion into the space, we're able to have that connectivity. So again, it's connection to information. You could give them a set of plans and say, what do you think? But I think they get a little more out of this, right? Okay. Multi-user. So we've had a lot of clients that say, we want to share VR everywhere. So this is becoming, I don't want to say mainstream, but there's more options out there today. This example here, this was just a test we were doing with NVIDIA Holodeck last year. And I think they were at AU, very excited with the Unity Reflect that was at AU this past session. But the idea here is, again, you're pushing your BIM information into a gaming environment and then connecting the gamers from different locations. So here it was Toronto and Vancouver. They were connected and they were looking at the layout of this space. So the asset comes from Revit. The room comes from Revit. Again, it could be any BIM authoring tool. So I've said Revit too much. So pretend it comes from ArchiCAD or any of the others. It doesn't matter. Feeds into the gaming engine, and then you build the story. So I describe these. You build the actors, so not only the people as their interaction, but the actual actors of the objects themselves. What is the object going to do? How do I, the user, interact with that object? And what do I have to know about that object? So what do I need to know from the BIM authoring tool? What do I need to know from the manufacturing data, from an asset management system? So I place this desk, I have those chairs. Do I need to know something about those chairs? If I wanted to simulate the chairs can go up and down, where do I get that information? How do I know how they work? Other than just me making it up. I want to make these experiences real. We're testing one of these on a couple hospitals as well. And it's that interaction of how all those components come together and work. All possible. Okay. We can drive through BIM, and this is one of my favorite ones. So in a nutshell, I was asked about 10 months ago, could buy an Xbox gaming wheel? And I said, how much? $200. Okay. And here it is. This is what they did with it. We actually have a commission now, and I think I'm still not allowed to say with who. So we have a commission to test bus drivers as they're driving through this facility. And it's a phenomenal thing. The reason, so why would I do this? Why not just take a driving test, right? Facility won't be built for, 10 months, a year and a half, whatever it is. They want to train about 1,000 to 1,200 drivers within the next 2 to 3 months. So we took the model into Unreal into the gaming engine, and we simulated the bus, and then we just simulated how it would drive. And I just love being able to, how phenomenal is it to say you can drive through BIM? And if that's your takeaway, you can drive through BIM. You can do that. It's awesome. That means you could probably fly through BIM. You can do anything. So why I like that example, because that was just the imagination. And it was great. And when I saw what they were doing, so I saw the gaming reel sitting there, I'd come into the office, I'd shake my head, whatever, and I'd go back and do my work. And then I saw them drive, and I said, what project is that? And it was actually one of our projects, and I just saw what they were actually doing. And they were saying, so what should happen if you bump into the wall? What should happen if you this? How do you score it? If I do crash into something, how many marks do I lose? If I finish, and all of a sudden the entire training program around the model that was going through design, So I think right now it's at 80, 90% design, but they started this when it was at 25%, 30% design. I said, how phenomenal is this? And you sit in front of the client, and the client was driving. I went into the meeting. The client said, oh, I love this. This technology is great. I said, yeah, man, it's $200. It's great, man. Holographic interaction. So here, I've struggled in my career with how to use AR during design. So here's an example. This is one of our stations, our Eglinton Crosstown. So simulating how the space can look. A little hokey, but what I like about it is that's a 3D printed model of the station. And we said, well, great. Well, there's a whole host of stuff happening around that building that's popping up above the ground. So so the surface one, I said, okay, you made the taxi ride. That's cool. But this I like. And I said, okay, I can actually look at the model and have a pretty good understanding of what's actually happening around that 3D printed model. So again, my thought here was, how do you use AR in an effective way? And if I put you in the goggles to actually experience that, I'm not sure how well the experience would be. But we had a couple of shows where we actually went and we had that sitting. So we had the 3D model sitting on a nice black pedestal, and you just hold up the like a Samsung phone or an iPad, whatever, and you kind of see all the underground. And I thought, okay, there's purpose here, but it needs much better definition. AR as a design review tool. I just think it's kind of cool, but as an architect, I don't know. This one, I can't remember which one this is. So this one here, okay, this was done in our Vancouver office, and this was done for a client event. And we said, how can we show where we've done work in this city? So what we did is we portrayed, projecting down on a table, a map of Vancouver, and we could zoom in and out of the map wherever we want. And then we put markers on the map of where we've done projects. Those markers are geolocated. Our models are geolocated. And we used Augment, I think it was called, when I hover over the marker, it grabs my geolocated Revit model, plops it on the map in the digital space, and allows me to see where my project is. So when we have clients over, in an interactive nature, we can quickly move around the map of Vancouver, hold this thing up, and get an experience and an understanding of where our projects are scattered across the city. So interesting application of AR. The next one, I don't show it. I cut it out of the presentation. The one that I have passion for that I'm not showing, so I'll just describe it, is I take my phone and I hover it over an object and I see the data. So there we would, example would be I put a QR code on that speaker and I hover my phone over the speaker and I see all the manufacturer data about the speaker. I've got a vision that, even when I teach, I'll say to the students, I'll say, can you go change that light bulb for me? I'm like, do you know what that light bulb is? And you look, it's fluorescent. Is it a T4? Is it a T8? Is it an LED modified tube into there? What is it? And they just look and go, so what's your point? Because obviously we don't know. So if you're able to point your phone at an asset in a space, and it'll tell you, this is what was modeled. You can see the digital twin. So this is what was in Revit. This is the family name. This is what was manufactured. This is what was installed. Here's the ops data, the warranty, all that good stuff. So it ties to that asset management system. And here's the bulb type. Okay, cool. So I pointed that. It's an old T12. Scratch my head. I don't know where to buy that anymore. Maybe I can hit buy and it gets delivered in the digital economy. The drone brings it and I'm a happy guy. Comes through my Amazon Prime. But then I say, but wait a minute. Why would I know T12s really, really suck. Why would I want to do that? So if it tells me performance data, and if it tells me, you know what, those bulbs are of this type, but they keep failing. So that bulb's been replaced 5 times in the last 2 years, and it's supposed to have a 50,000 hour lifespan. Then you can start and say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Why is that? Then maybe it connects to electrical performance data and it says, you know what, you're having electrical strikes in that ballast. The ballast is doing something crazy, causing the lights to fail. And you sit back and say, I'm not going to press buy on that bulb. I'm going to replace that fixture because that's a logical thing to do. And all of a sudden, just from pointing at the asset, I'm connected to this data. So the video I would have shown there was a rudimentary. We just went up to a QR code and you see some data. So that's cool. That's AR. Now, how to do that with good stuff. We'll talk about it in 1 second. So I'm on the home stretch here. What do I have till 45? Yeah, I'm almost done. Just want to quickly show live data tracking here. So all those stuff that we've built, so this is one of my Power BI dashboards. Power BI is my best friend. I love Power BI. So then marketing came and made Power BI exciting for me. So basically we track our types of tools, and we're able to graph savings, and the savings are basically the clicks that we save. I can estimate if you use my Revit loader, you're saving 100 clicks because you don't have to do all these things. Every click has a value. So let's say I click my mouse or my keys in 1.5 seconds. My CEO says that's rubbish, it should be 3 seconds. Well, no, 1.5 seconds per click. Assign an hourly average rate, and I can track savings over the history of the use of our tools. And right now, like, that's awesome. This is March 12th. We started 28 grand throughout April. It's at like 490 right now, which is awesome. And it's no rubbish. It's tracking live usage of savings. And we give that CEO, CFO can validate the existence of Brent and his team. And I say, okay, I'll take it. That works. But that concept is there. And again, it's all through the power of Power BI. You can send Revit to Power BI. You can tell Power BI to grab data from anywhere, bring it all together, make sense of what you want to make sense of, and visualize it. And it is beautiful. And I always say, look at Revit without looking at Revit. And that's a phenomenal thing. Your Revit file export to a SQL database, plug the SQL database into here, and you're seeing purely just the data taxonomy that's housed inside Revit. And you can do so much beauty with it. And I have other stuff all on that, but it is phenomenal. Power BI, your Revit, and let me know what you find. So, point at the lights, I want to see stuff. Yes. I got to see stuff from somewhere. This goes right back to 5G, cloud, etc. IBI, we built this asset management system. The joy of this for me is the ability to bring BIM into it. So this is the first iteration of it from a couple years ago now. It uses solely IFC. So it takes Revit, EcoSim, or anything in between. We even did Civil 3D to Navisworks to IFC, plug it into this system. Has the mapping capabilities. We're able to graph, like, this is all Power BI backbone, so you can do anything with it. Of course, when you're testing something, you want to do it to your own buildings. So this here at this point had our main office. We now have our Vancouver office, our Calgary office, and I think London and Manchester as well. 2D viewer and 3D viewer, because we heard, well, you know what? I just want to see 2D. I'm the facility manager. I just want to see a plan. Well, sure, it's BIM, slice and dice whatever you want. We'll show you a plan. Connected to our HR, so we know what people are assigned where, so we can manage the people assets of IBI. 3D viewer, again, we've got spaces, and then it'll go to assets in a moment. I talk faster than the video. I should really script my talking a little better, apparently. So we can go to assets, select any piece of asset that we want, bring up asset details. There's all my warranty, manufacturer data, etc. I still have the contextual interface of where it is within the BIM, and I can then do stuff with it. We can assign trouble tickets. For a traditional asset manager, there's my awesome spreadsheet of insanity, but we can Google search it. Mobile app to connect to my information as well, scanning QR codes, directly linking it back to that same asset, and making tickets. So a ticket is something's broken. What do you do when something's broken? I send the email to the ominous world of email, and nothing happens. So here, the ticket is connected to the asset, which is connected to the geolocation, and it's all in this wonderful soup of data that's glued together. So streams of information. What this debunks for me, if I want something like this and I hear, well, where do I put it in Revit? And I'm going to pick on Revit here. Revit's a nice central model of insanity, and if all this stuff was in Revit, oh my goodness, the world would be a crazy place. It doesn't go in Revit. It doesn't go in BIM. Revit is one stream. Trouble ticket, that's me. I'm the user. I'm that stream of data. And then all the other streams of data for that singular asset, the furnace, the chair, the light, whatever it is, all gets big data fused together and portrayed to whomever the receiver is, the user, the FM, etc. Facility level, and then IBI steps back at the higher level. Let me hit mute on this, because she talks much slower than I talk, much slower. So the idea of a smart city platform is now you have your building is a speck of data. With all the complexity in it, it's a piece. At the community level, the campus level, city level, whatever it is, you've got all this data that has to come together. Traffic, security, waste management, water utility, you name it. It's all out there and it's all connected. Anybody that thinks a building floats, let me know how you do that. That's awesome. But even a floating building has to connect to all that infrastructure coming into the building. Once it all comes in, I'm now, again, the user. I am an interface of data, probably the most important data interface in the world of smart city. And what we've done is we've built this smart city platform to say, let me, again, grab big data, all that stuff, and then whoever my audience is, start to purpose fit, mold it, and give you an input to it. So this smart city viewer allows you to interact with pieces of the data. So one example, City of Toronto waste management. All of my rubbish bins across the city, I can track and understand if they're working or not. Do I have an issue as myself, the user? I'm a piece of data for the waste management process of the entire city. Package delivery into condos. Who, how, what does that mean, right? Where is it coming from? How does it get in? Bhujwindar, India was our first implementation of this. Massive city block, management of traffic, management of people flow. How do they all interact? All of these city systems and me, the user, have to talk, have to live cohesively. That's what's portrayed here. And again, again, the concept of big data purpose fit. That's what the smart city platform achieves. And then, of course, down to the user level. Oh, that is beautiful. Let me, all right. That was weird. That's all right. Let's make sure. Don't know what that was. Microsoft Surface Book 2. Maybe I just reached the graphics limitation of it. I don't know. What was I saying? The user as the data source. Everything I described, whether it's from the micro level of the general user to the macro level of smart city implementation, the user is the critical piece. And that interaction, what we said is, we call it tenant experience, or now we're trying to call it user experience app. But this example here in the world of a condo or in the world of a university campus, how do I take that user and harness everything that's pertinent for them to become a data source? And that's what this app does. Connects them to the macro smart city infrastructure, the asset management system, or quite simply, I point at that light and I need to see the stuff about that asset. It's all broken in. So here at the campus level, these are all systems that would be linked, part of or linked into a facility management system, and we build these connection pieces to them. So if I need to book a room, book the common space, report an issue. So I report a ticket against this projector. I point, I do it. It's tracked in the system, connected to the asset management system, fed then over to the facility manager. And this ecosystem of information is all connected by what I just did. And then if 10 people report something about that projector, we have now logistics to say there's something wrong with it. And we take action. We use the information for a greater good. So just examples of how it would look, and I won't dwell on that. And I think, if I am correct, and using it as a connection piece as well. There's a citywide, campus-wide emergency that's a feeding mechanism back too. I don't know if here in British Columbia, but in Ontario, we have the Ontario alert system. So everybody's cell phone goes nuts. Yeah, and I think it's great. All those who complain about it, no comment. But you hear the funny one, because there's no joke about the emergencies. But our nuclear reactor in Pickering, somebody by mistake pressed "there's danger." And if you're from Ontario, you all woke up Sunday morning and it was, what? Pickering nuclear plant disaster something, and then half an hour later was, no. Somebody pressed the button so now they're looking into how you could press the button by mistake. But that aside, I think the systems are all good. And with that, this is the last one. So if I can get, automation is something we actively shepherd today. So it's more like a yes, no type thing. Actually, I can't remember how I position that in here. So let's see. Something there we go, yes, no. Something we actively shepherd today. Interesting. Kind of what I expected. Cool. So thank you for participating in these. And that's interesting. And actually, if we want to, I know we're at the end here. So closing thoughts or comments, or I'd love to hear a little bit about, especially the no's. That's all I have. Thoughts, comments? Yes?
Just wondering, how big is your team for automation?
Not big enough. Okay, and it's funny, we're a 2,500 person firm, and I discovered that some firms smaller, much smaller than mine, have more. So I have 7 dedicated people that are in my overhead team. But the trick, and that's why, so I have 7 people, yet I'm the supervisor of about, or director, indirect supervisor, about 65. So when they first heard that, they said, how did Brent get 65 staff? I said, Brent doesn't have 65 staff, but I borrow project people. So I'll lead them to do project work and then weave into project work some elements, right? And that's how we've really made the difference here. The one who does my Revit modeling, my Revit add-ins, he's actually on my overhead team, but he's 50% chargeable. Like, where do you find time to do all of this work? But he said if he doesn't work, he doesn't understand, and then he doesn't understand the need, therefore he can't automate what makes sense, right?
No, my question was actually pretty much
Oh, okay.
how big is the team?
Cool.
If you're a much smaller entity, how can you
Yeah.
leveraging some of this?
And some of the dialogue I've had is like, you've got to just, you can't see it as overhead. I think that's the challenge, is that, you know, if you're going to make something, you're going to do R&D, you're going to build something that's an overhead, not project. And it has to be no different than, you know, I open a small architecture practice. I need to do my specs. I need drawings. I need templates. I need all my things. It's woven into what I have to do, right? I need my product catalogs. I need all that. Why do I not need my technology? Right, and it's still, I think in the industry, if we can, I hate to say it, like if Brent wasn't a sideshow and if Brent was just woven into the fabric of the firm, it would be easier, right? So I have somebody from IBI. Am I a sideshow or am I woven in? Come on. I'm no sideshow? Okay, I like that. Sometimes I feel like a sideshow. Yes?
So it seems like you're integrating a lot of many different information streams together, and I'm just wondering how often these things break or the maintenance.
That's interesting. I would say nothing is static. So they're always, like we're always into these things, enhancing, bettering, whatever. I can't think of any catastrophic breaks. Even with our third-party system, so BIM 360, if everybody's, I don't know if we're all on it or not. If you remember September 2017, the massive BIM 360 break when it was down, maybe not on the West Coast, but it was apparently down from 2 a.m. Eastern time to about noon Eastern. So it was killing Europe, killed half our day. You all woke up here. What's the problem? It's all good. But like things like that, where you know we put dependence in software as a service. So so that instance, AWS went down apparently. Like, what do you do, right? We have a lot of stuff in Azure. So right now, for example, my ability to track our license usage for Autodesk is down because I have an issue with a SQL Server in Azure. So we're trying to fix that. So there's things like that that happen, but you just got to take it in stride. Because what I'll say is at the end of the day, I can pull out the drafting board and start drawing again. But I won't, because I've built all this efficiency. It has to account for the negatives of potential downtime. Right.
The automation failures or projects that didn't go anywhere?
Yeah, we have a lot of crazy ideas. So I know one, the BIM Bot. You know, it was great for those 1 or 2 projects. I'm struggling to bring it into mainstream now. So what it did for those projects was to connect all of those non-BIMming, non-connected professionals. But trying to make that a common thing across IBI and who my targets are, I don't know. So also when we implemented that, we jammed it into Slack. There was no Microsoft Teams. Now we have Microsoft Teams, and I've got this thing that's buried in Slack. And I don't know. So even that choice to narrow something to one platform, that was a huge error, right? So actually that's right back to open, right? The asset management system, because it harnesses OpenBIM. I can't stress how important that is because, yeah, we're working on making it work with Revit. We actually wanted to have a live back and forth with Revit. Half of our revenue is Revit-based project. It's all good. But we have transit work, and we have civil 3D models, and we have Bentley models, and all that through the IFC file. The compatibility is important to actually make it valid for more than just, if they tweak the Revit API and completely mess with our connection, like they've never done that, right? I can still say, well, great, IFC in, I have another way in. So it's very important to have that flexibility. And if you're not familiar with OpenBIM, Building Smart International, just go to that website. You learn everything you need to know about IFC and ISO 16569. I can never get it right. And I say it like every week in class, and I do the same stumble. So it's very important. Any other thoughts or comments?
Just one more over here.
Yes.
You had mentioned that sometimes people don't know when you've implemented something new. How do you guys go about training staff in that sense?
So a couple ways, because I'll say what I've discovered is I talk too much and I can never talk enough. That's what I was told. You didn't send an email, or you sent an email but not to the right people. Why didn't you communicate it verbally? So basically I said, okay, enough. So you have to do everything. So we'll use the email blast. So a design technology news flash, hey, there's this new thing. And you go ask around. I never heard of it. Of course you didn't, even though the email goes to everybody. So we don't read emails. Sessions like this, I'll do them internally. So I'll try to do lunch and learns, or I'll be arrogant and stand up in a design meeting and say, oh, by the way, did you know? I spend so much time in management meetings just to give my 2 minutes. Here's the things design technology just did. And then we use Teams a lot. So we have special teams groups, so people who do the BIM coordinator role, people who work on standards, our parametric teams. So we can actually do a mass blitz to everybody that's part of a Teams team. I really wish they'd given a name. But everybody part of a team on Teams would get a notification. And I think there's no right answer. Somebody said, our finance team writes, hey, did you know? So we use BST as our timesheet and expense and everything. And we'll get emails. Did you know this about BST? And it's just a little blurb. It's like, you can open your expense sheet, press this button, and so we're trying to do that now with this stuff. Did you know if you go into Revit, you have a level maker, right? But no matter what, I will constantly hear, I've never heard what you're saying, Brent. And that's life, unfortunately. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Just on that, the reality of bigger companies is that there's a lot of turnover, so people join and
Yep.
It's a constant battle.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point too. Even when I feel I've done everything right, the person, I never heard of it, and I just walk away shaking my head, and then I discover, they were just onboarded 2 months ago. They did never hear of it. That's okay. So yeah, that's why you have to constantly regurgitate things you've already said to different audiences. That's a very, very good point. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for your attention, for not heckling me, and those who know me, and I hope this was insightful. Thank you.